It was before 8 o'clock, about 7:55 when I flew in and released my torpedo at the West Virginia. They were raising the flag. I know this because I talked with the bugler, who is still alive and living in Honolulu. His name is Richard Fisk.
There was 5 of them. 2 looked like they were headed for the Oklahoma, and 3 for the West Virginia. So when they dropped their torpedoes, and then the torpedoes hit, and they were about 25 feet above the water when they dropped the torpedoes, and then you could see the little wave coming towards the ship, and Stanley says, look now, watch them when they hit, they're going to go thump. That was the first mistake we made that morning. When those 3 torpedoes hit, it blew Stanley and I across the ship to the starboard side. We're 118 feet wide. We were covered with oil, didn't know what in the world to think. And Stanley says, them buggers were using live torpedoes, which you're not supposed to. And then as they climbed, then we were back, we looked at the airplane. Then as they got over the ship, then we could see the 2 red balls, but we still didn't grasp they were Japanese.
Like many others, even as the planes passed overhead, the shock of the attack proved so acute that Private Fisk failed to realize they were Japanese.
Our First Sergeant Willoughby, he came up on the deck and he says, get your butts to your battle station. He says, we're under attack by the Japs, just like that. And then we looked around. It was still trying to get your thoughts together because everything is happening at one time. So I said, oh God, my battle station. So then I made it up to the bridge. And then about that time, there was 2 more planes coming in, or there was 5. They come in groups of 5. 3 headed for the Oklahoma and 2 more for the West Virginia.
As the first torpedoes exploded against the West Virginia and Oklahoma, the sailors overcame their surprise and began fighting back. Aboard the Arizona, general quarters sounded, and the men rushed to their battle stations. Don Stratton.
Just started immediately for my battle station. We were firing at high altitude bombers, and we could see that our bursts weren't even getting close to them because the fuses weren't set the proper way. So. And whether we could have reached them or not, I don't know, because they were way up there.
Aboard the Tennessee, Wade Hawkins started to his battle station.
They would open the machine guns and go this way, horizontal machine guns. And the bullets were hitting right above my head. And for some reason, I was laughing. I don't know why I was laughing. I guess I was laughing because they missed me. But somebody reached around and told me to get inside. I went inside. They told me to get up on my gun, which was right next deck above me. And I was a gun captain on a 5-inch 25 anti-aircraft battery. We started firing like everybody else was firing. Everything was flying. We got credit for 4, but who knows? The whole world was shooting. We were just kids scared to death.
As the attack unfolded on Battleship Row, Lieutenant Tsuyoshi Nagai, the commander of the Soryuz torpedo squadron, dove hard for the battleship Pennsylvania, sitting in dry dock. And when he saw that the dry dock's doors were closed, he quickly switched to what looked like a huge battleship. That huge battleship turned out to be the cruiser Helena, with the mine layer Ogallala moored alongside it. The torpedo passed under the Ogallala and struck the Helena amidships at 07:57.5 hours. The explosion did heavy damage to the cruiser, but the concussion ruptured the Ogallala's hull and buckled the fire room's deck plates. Here are the Ogallala's final moments, captured by a camera crew aboard the USS Argonne. Slowly, she rolls over on her port side next to the 1010 dock. By 10 a.m., she capsized. As the Ogallala slowly capsized, the attack on Battleship Row continued. Another wave of Kates hurtled across the wave tops to release their deadly torpedoes. Richard Fisk.
I was up on the bridge. This was right after 8 o'clock, about 5 after 8. And when they dropped their torpedoes, then they had to climb to clear the superstructure. They're only 25 feet off the water. From the water line to the top part of the superstructure, 16 stories high. So they had to climb like the devil to clear the ship. And I was up on the bridge at that time. This was around 5 after 8, I guess it was. And one of the pilots, of course, they have their greenhouse back in case they crash, they can get out in a hurry. So he was looking back to see where the torpedoes was going to hit, and we made eye contact. And I remember him, I dreamt about him for 50 years. Almost every month, I'd see that same face, dropping that torpedo.
Richard Fisk was not alone. The Japanese were diving so low that many Americans recall seeing the faces of their enemy that morning. Wayne Worley at Schofield Barracks.
Another bomb went off, and I got up and went outside, and the guy stood beside me, a soldier, and he said, pretty realistic bombing attack from maneuvers that Wheeler Field is doing. I told him, I says, no, this is real McCoy, the Japanese, and still I stood there. One of the Zeros come down, and he took a little aim at me, come right there, and almost landed, it looked like, and he was going so slow. But I'll never forget how he looked. I had my back to the sun, and as he machine gunned me, he missed me about 8 foot. And he gave me a big grin, a big smile as I've ever seen. And he had one of his teeth was gold. One of his 2 front teeth was gold. But over the years, I forgot which one.
Scott Lamb was helping to push aircraft to safety on Ford Island.
I was pushing on a grub and duck, and I was on the side away from the hangar. And all of a sudden, the plane wouldn't move. And I pushed harder, it still wouldn't move. And I walked around the plane and just see these guys running in the hangar about 100 yards away. And I looked up, and here come these guys in strafing. So I didn't want to be in those airplanes, so I took off at the hangar. And I could see the gunner in the back seat. I could see his face and everything. He had a helmet on. He was sitting up high in the seat and had this machine gun. He gave me a burst as he went around, as they cut around like that. And the bullets hit right beside me and ricocheted off the wall and just fell there spinning. And, just a few seconds and he was over, gone. And I reached down and picked the bullets up. I remember they were hot, and I jiggled them in my hand and dropped them in my shirt pocket. The guys were opening the door a little further, and they said, "Did they hit you? Did you get hit?" And I said, "Nah, I never came close." And all of a sudden, it just scared the devil out of me. I started shaking. I was hanging on the hangar door, and I thought, wow, that was a close one.
Not far from Scott Lamb's location, at the far end of Battleship Row, the USS California attracted a flight of torpedo-carrying Kates. They closed to point-blank range, released their weapons, and scored 2 direct hits. Soon after, the Nevada also became a target for the marauding Kates.
We were in the midship repair station. I said to the chief, I got to get a Liberty. I'm supposed to go on Liberty. He said, oh, don't worry about it. These things don't last that long. And you'll get on Liberty. And so about that time, we took a torpedo up near the bow.
The men in Pearl Harbor were in shock, but they were fighting back, determined to exact some sort of small revenge against their attackers. The Japanese, within a span of a few minutes, had struck severe blows to American military power in the Pacific. But the worst was yet to come.